guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the M4J Network here on OpenTTD. Welcome back to videos. Now, I know some people are disappointed by this, none more so than I am, I should say. I did not want to have to go back to making videos. I was quite enjoying streaming, to be perfectly honest. That's my phone buzzing away in the background. Apologies for that. But yeah, I'm really disappointed that it's had to come to this. Basically, I fixed the issue with OBS, and again, I will be writing a blog post. I'll probably try and do it for this Friday, actually, so tomorrow for you guys by the time you're watching this. I'm going to try and write a blog post that explains exactly how I have sort of fixed my issues with OBS and sort of learning to love OBS again. But yeah, as part of the problem, I think it's my internet connection isn't that solid right now, and we're not really sure why. We're all experiencing internet problems here in the house at the moment, so yeah, it's an absolute mystery for us. We've tried different things. I've tried various adapters and Ethernet connections and things like that. So that's the really dumb thing. I'm not actually connected through Wi-Fi. I'm connected through Ethernet, and I've checked that my adapters and cables and everything can do high bandwidth streaming, and it says it can. You know, every product description that I've read says it can. Yet for some reason, it can't. So we did the test stream last week that didn't work out, and because of that, I elected not to do a stream last week. I didn't have enough time to make a video for last week, so apologies for that. But hopefully from now on, not only will I be doing Thursday videos, I will also be doing, hopefully, again, this is dependent on a few things sort of going the way I'd like them to, but I'll hopefully be doing a new Tuesday series as well, that will kind of tie into the Thursday series, like the stream and then the highlights did. But I'm not going to give too much away on that right now, because I don't want to make promises that I can't keep, because I'm getting really good at that. Like, I talk about series that I've been working on that then never get done. So I'm working on it. Let's put it that way. I'm working on lots of different things that can fill that Tuesday slot, one of which I'm sure will happen, maybe both, and I'll alternate. But again, I don't want to make promises that I can't keep right now, so we'll see about that. Now, what am I doing on video at the moment? Well, as you've seen from the fact GSB, Gardcity St Bartholomew, the network central connection to Gardcity has now been completed. I have also gone through the entirety of the network central mainline from Bathurst Street, Fort Mason, all the way up to the junction where it connects with the Grand Northern Mainline. I've also done the Grand Northern line as far as Beffingway, and I've gone back from Beffingway to Warnbridge Airport, and this was the test. This is the second network, cross-network service to be introduced. It's also the second cross-region service to be introduced, and it runs between Dendstone Carneige and Sunington via the network central line. So it diverges from the other cross-region service at Bathurst Street. It then runs up the network central line to Warnbridge, and then it runs back down the Gardcity Great Northern line as far as Dendstone, where it then diverges to join the West Winds line and runs up to Sunington. This, I believe, is the first time that the slow lines between Flaham Junction and Sunington have been used in the M4J network. They were used in the Majeffries network, but I don't think they've been used in the M4J network. So it's a very exciting moment for lots of different reasons, because it's also the first time the network central line has seen trains. And yeah, I'm really happy with the outcome. Hopefully you guys are too. It's one of those things where I dreaded doing the speed limits and everything for it, but it's actually not too bad. It's the usual standard 125 mile per hour on the fast lines and 75/60 on the slow lines. 60 for freight, of course, 75 for passengers. 45 miles an hour in and out of stations, whether you're on the fast line or the slow line, just to keep it nice and standard. And then, you know, 45 miles per hour for junctions as well. Nice and easy, nice and simple. I'm pleased to announce that all the tests pretty much worked. I had a little bit of an issue with the junction at Dendstone, which has always been a thorn in my side, but I've managed to resolve it, so that's good. And I also, when I tested the network central, which you will see in just a second, I'm still in the process of testing it, so I haven't yet run trains to Honingville via the network central line, which you will see momentarily. You'll see what I mean. The map might have to be updated because of this. But yeah, I've been doing lots of like behind the scenes work between streams and videos and whatnot. Oh, I wonder what that noise was. It was just something falling out of my window. That's nice. But yeah, the Network Central line is up and running, and also the North Valleys line has also now been speed limited between Beffing Way and Sunington. So that, I think, is going to be next week's video, is getting the North Valleys line up and running. So I've got some really cool ideas. The old train factory at Honingville is going to be the base of operations for that. So it's going to look really cool once that's up and running and working. So this is the end of the cross region. You can see here. And now we're into the Network Central. So this is Triangle Point Depot. This was built on stream many weeks ago now, and named by one of you guys. I can't remember off the top of my head who, but it's a really good name, so I kept it. And I think it fits really nicely. I think it's a homage to the old Jeffries network as well, because we had a triangle something or other there as well. So I like little throwbacks here and there when it makes sense. I think it works really, really well. So we've got this. It's all set up. I know when I originally built the depot, I did speed limits and stuff, but I've since gone back and changed the way that the depot works slightly, so that certain platforms are for specific directions for where the train is running to next, including those bay platforms that you saw there. Bay sidings, I should say, because they're not really platforms, they are sidings. But yeah, GSB is now seeing its first trains ever. So this is the first service. This runs between Gardcity St Bartholomew here and Bathurst Street, which is down to... Is it Bathurst Street? I think this one runs to Bathurst Street, which is south of Triangle Point. We'll find out in just a second as to which direction the tracks here diverge. Yeah, I'm taking my time with it, aren't I? Yeah, Bathurst Street. Just making sure. It's an all-stopper. We have got the similar system to some of the other routes, where we've got a couple of all-stoppers, a couple of semi-fasts, and then some more faster versions of the semi-fasts. There are currently 5 different services. There's an all-stopper to Bathurst Street. There's an all-stopper to Cardtown and Tonfing Bridge, I think, or Tronfing Bridge, which is the other sort of junction station along the northern section here of the Network Central. We've also then got a semi-fast to Bathurst Street, and then we've got a semi-fast to Beffing Way. No, wait, sorry. We've got the 2 stoppers out of GSB. We've then got a semi-fast to Beffing Way from GSB, and then from Bathurst Street, we've got a semi-fast to Beffing Way and a semi-fast to Honingville. They are the 5 services currently. They all come out of Triangle Point Depot. The 2 semi-fast services, the one that goes to Honingville, uses the bay platforms on the far east side of the station that up till now I don't think had ever been used. And then the Beffing Way one uses the northernmost platforms, where it can turn back and use the dedicated exit line. All trains actually currently that stop at Beffing Way, terminate at Beffing Way, use that exit line. So it keeps the traffic grade separated from one another. In terms of Bathurst Street here, the all-stopper uses the bay platforms from the slow lines on the Network Central. The 2 semi-fast services, because the train comes out of the depot, it actually runs through the station into the sidings on the southern side that you can see on the screen right now. Then it runs back into the correct platform to pick up passengers, and then heads off towards its final destination, whether it's Beffing Way or Honingville. Those 2 haven't been tested yet, like I said, so that may or may not work. I haven't decided yet. I'm also debating whether to add another service from GSB to Honingville, and then there'll be more options to go between Gardcity and Honingville. That might not be a bad idea, because then you've got GSG, Bartholomew Square, and Gardcity St Bartholomew. But that might cause complications if you're at Honingville, for example, because the 2 platforms are right next to each other as well. You can imagine if you just hear Bartholomew and you get on the first train, it might not actually be the one you want to be on. So maybe I won't do that. But it made sense to have a Bathurst Street to Honingville service. I have been in touch with the BR Trains guys again about the possibility of adding the Class 313 to the BR Trains set. It is on the list, but it's quite low down in terms of priority. If I knew how to code trains from scratch, I would probably make one myself, and then just ask one of the guys if they would mind painting it for me, I suppose, designing it, creating it in the pixel art, because they're much better at that than I am. I literally just go in and recolor stuff, which is something I'm very good at, but creating one from scratch, not so good. Trying to get the body shell right, that's something I think I would struggle with. So it's on the list. That's the main thing. It is on the list. I'm trying to think of alternatives to the 319s for trains that can run through Bathurst Street that aren't diesel hauled. So in other words, dual voltage. There are the 313s, the 319s, And then if you get into more modern stock, you've got like the 387s, the 700s and the 717s, and I think the 707s have the ability for a pantograph, even though they don't currently. They have been certified for it. And that's the cool thing, is pretty much every modern electric multiple unit that's been built since like the early 90s is capable of dual voltage. It would be cool if I could have the networkers actually operate. I think it was the 365s could operate both. They've since had their third rail shoes removed. But I still think, like, if you're in the rail industry and you're thinking of becoming an open access operator, I still think it's a really good idea to have like cross London services. You've got Thameslink, and Thameslink's fine, but I'm thinking more like using the West London line to link, say, the West Coast Main Line, places like Milton Keynes, which I know has the service that runs to East Croydon, but I'm thinking more like Milton Keynes Central to, trying to think of somewhere on the South Western Mainline, Guildford, let's say, something like that. Or even going out to Reading and using that section. I can't remember what the junctions are like. I mean, the West London line runs to Clapham Junction, so any rail link that runs through Clapham Junction is a feasible option. But something like that, and then using 365s with their third rail shoes added back. That'd be a really cool, because you can run express. They run 100 miles an hour, no problem. But you can also, in fact, do they run? No, they don't do 110, do they? They don't do 110. But also the 350s, actually, thinking about it, that are being kicked out of TransPennine. They might work well for cross-London services as well, because they're kind of commuter trains that have been adapted for more faster running. They're capable of 110 miles an hour. I'm just thinking of things like that, where it can run really fast out on the country lines, but once you get into the city, they've also got the capacity and the ability to run on both overhead and third rail. But this is just me thinking aloud. Don't take this too literally, because I can't see it happening. Something else I was thinking about the other day, and actually I was reading about Nightstar again, which is the overnight Eurostar services that were originally planned and then cancelled. How feasible do you think it would be these days to have like a sleeper service that starts at St Pancras and goes to, say, Munich or Geneva or Milan, Venice, anything like that? Overnight rail travel is starting to sort of surge in popularity again in mainland Europe, and I feel like we should be getting in on that. And I do still think that High Speed 1 and High Speed 2 should be linked at some point in the future, so you could get on a train in Glasgow and wake up in Venice, for example. I mean, how good would that be? It's a long journey still, don't get me wrong, but if you get a good locomotive that can travel at good speed, 125 miles an hour even, that's adequate enough, and you can travel straight from Venice. Might not be the best example, but let's say Amsterdam. You could travel from Glasgow down High Speed 2 to London, cross to High Speed 1, and then you can do the London to Lille journey in just over an hour nowadays, I believe, but that's at 186 to 199 miles an hour. So let's say it'll take like 3 hours to do the journey. I'm trying to think how far you could reasonably get overnight from, say, Glasgow or Edinburgh or even Birmingham or Manchester. They're all feasible options. You could also have, say, like Glasgow to Edinburgh meets at Manchester, and there might be a portion in Manchester as well, and then that's all joined together into a single train and then runs through to, let's say, Calais, where it then splits again. Half of it goes to Belgium, half of it goes half of it goes to Brussels, the other half goes to Paris. And there's so many options. There's so many options for what you can and can't do. I think the world is your oyster if you're in the rail industry right now with what you can and can't do with overnight travel. And it's a really good way to take on airlines, because most airports don't allow aircraft to take off after 11 PM. Like Heathrow, between the hours of 11 PM and 5 AM, no aircraft are allowed to fly. So that's a good way of getting people on the train, is you could be on the move whilst you sleep, which you can't do with short haul aircraft. It's 40 minutes between London and Paris. You can't sleep in that time, whereas you can on a train. So it might not be the most convenient in terms of, it's not the fastest, it's not the cheapest necessarily, but the fact that you can stay overnight and not have to worry about catching an early flight the next day because you're literally on the move whilst you sleep. You'll fall asleep in Folkestone, you'll wake up in Geneva. It's just one of those things. I like it. I don't know how feasible it is economically, but as a rail enthusiast and someone who wants to see rail used more often, I can see it becoming an option perhaps in the future, providing the right infrastructure is provided. That in itself is a very big question, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I like it. I think it's something that should go on the maybe pile, and we'll go from there. So what are you seeing on screen right now? Let's go back to that, shall we? So I'm currently using, I think, 302s and 305s for most of this service right now. I'm still a really big fan of the idea of using like janky old trains to run these services and then slowly upgrading them over time. Some people in the past might have assumed that I don't like old trains and I don't like BR era infrastructure because of how I speak about BR. I'm not a fan of BR, as you know. I don't think the railways should be renationalised at all. I'm kind of a fan of the new system that's been announced. I think the better way of doing it is where if the DfT was to take more risk on themselves and not just throw it onto the operators. And that's kind of what's happening now with the new system, but I'm still not a huge fan of it. But I am a big fan of old trains, like the 310s, the 302s, the 305s. They weren't bad looking trains. They weren't the most comfortable, but they weren't bad to look at, and they looked really good in the grey and blue livery. I think they look quite nice in the blue and red as well, but that's my personal biased opinion. Some people have said nice things about them, and I'm very grateful for that. But I can also understand those who perhaps think I'm ruining the sanctity of an old train. I can understand that to an extent. I can understand that. But I'm a big fan of how these trains are looking. And as I said, I do like the idea of... I've always liked the idea of upcycling and sort of scrabbling together bits and pieces. And because I've been watching these travel vlog videos lately, I really like when... like a budget intercity express train pulls into a station and it's got carriages from all over Europe. So there's some from France, there's some from Austria, there's some from Switzerland, some from Germany, and they're all meshed together into this one train. They're all compatible, there's nothing wrong there, but they're all got different designers, they're all built at different times. I like it. I think it's really cool that that is happening. And again, I think the UK is so far behind when it comes to reusing old trains. And we look at... like franchise operators here in the UK. Obviously in France you've got SNCF for the main operator, but you've also got Ouigo, which is a separate entity to SNCF. It's operated as part of it, but it is its own separate company. You've also got Thales, you've also got Eurostar, which again, I mean Eurostar and Thales are technically the same thing now, or they will be soon because they've announced the merger. Whereas here in the UK, one thing I do like about the UK is you have got GWR, Southern, Thameslink, Gatwick Express, all operating out of Brighton, for example, so that you don't see the same train twice. They've all got different trains made by different manufacturers. There's a bit more variety there. But I also like having the idea of budget rail and having lots of different... I can't remember where I was going with this train of thought now, but lots of different operators, lots of different rolling stock. I find that more interesting to see. And I think we are behind in terms of reusing old stock, and that is something that should be now part of franchise awards, which I've said in the past. If a company is wishing to... Oh, okay, yeah, I remember where I was going with this. So if a company wishes to reuse old stock, then they should be charged a cheaper fee. But open access was where I was going with this. There was meant to be 3 open access operators operating by the end of this year. Sadly, because of Corona and the economic impact that it has had, there are still only 2. Grand Central has given up on the plans to run between Euston and Blackpool using Class 90s and Mark 3s. I think that's a shame. I can understand where they're coming from a business sense, but I think at that point someone else should have perhaps stepped in and helped them do it, because it's clearly a viable option. Otherwise they wouldn't have started doing it in the first place. They wouldn't have looked into it. It looks like the Class 90s might have a new lease of life with Cross Country, which I think is great. But actually, Cross Country are a very good candidate, I feel, for reusing old stock. So if they're running a route that is entirely electrified, why not use networkers? Or if it's a faster route, why not use the Class 90s, which it looks like they might be doing now? If it's electrified and unelectrified, why not reuse some of the old HSTs or some of the old Voyagers? Or if it's entirely unelectrified, why not use some of the old Turbo Stars as well on certain routes? I'm trying to think what other diesel trains are currently not being used. None that spring to mind. But the HSTs especially, and the voyages, because they're going to be redundant soon too. Why not reuse them? Not only could you boost capacity on existing routes, you might also be able to offer new routes. And as George pointed out on Discord the other day, cross-country used to be a lot bigger than it is now. They used to run services to and from Brighton. I think it was Brighton to Manchester they used to do. And that ran via the West London line, which is what I was talking about at the start of this video. So why not bring that back? Why not have a networker, for example, or 2 or 3 networkers coupled together, run a service between Brighton and maybe not Manchester, maybe that's a bit far away now, but why not between between Brighton and Stoke, or between Brighton and Birmingham, or between Brighton and Liverpool, or Manchester, yeah, that's literally what I just said, or Crewe, that's the one I meant. And that opens the door for so many more possibilities. Obviously Avanti are going to get involved, and probably Thameslink and Southern as well, and say, hang on a minute, what about competition? But they're not offering services along the whole route. If you do it as a limited stopper, let's say you went from Brighton to Three Bridges, to Gatwick Airport, to Clapham Junction. And then from Clapham Junction, maybe stop at Kensington Olympia, and then Willesden Junction. And then from Willesden Junction, maybe not stop again until Milton Keynes. And then from Milton Keynes, maybe to Stoke, non-stop. Something like that. I can't remember exactly how many stations there are on the West Coast Main Line. I feel like I'm missing out Northampton, which you should never do. But you kind of get the idea. You kind of get what I'm saying right now, is why not actually look into it? You know, what's the worst that can happen? That could be a cross-country route, or it could be an open access route. There must be a demand for it. People don't necessarily want to have to travel to Euston. If you live in South London, for example, if you live in Clapham, you don't want to have to travel to Euston across the river just to get a train to Manchester. That would be where you then take the taxi to Gatwick and fly. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to eradicate right now. So why not have an express/semi-fast service that actually ticks that box for you? You get on the train in Brighton, you get off the train in Manchester. We used to do it. I can't actually remember why Virgin stopped it. I think it was because of might have been pathing issues. It also might have been because back then Silverlink operated out of Kensington, and you know, the infrastructure wasn't that great. Now it's London Overground, it's a different story. Plus Kensington was built to be the hub of Nightstar. Actually no, sorry, it wasn't. It was Motorrail, that's the one. It was built to be the hub of Motorrail here in the UK, and it was used as the hub for Motorrail. So it's a station that was built to certain standards. I think also, not Nightstar as such, but I think it was also the secondary terminus for Eurostar if there was anything wrong with Waterloo. If the trains couldn't get to Waterloo, they would go to Kensington instead. So it's built to a certain standard. Why not actually use it again? Because right now it has like a half-hourly overground service and then a half-hourly southern service. Why not actually have it be used as the central London hub for cross London rail? You could even call it that if you want. Take the name, I don't mind. Again, I'm thinking aloud, and it's probably not viable in the current circumstances, but imagine if it was. Imagine how cool that would be. And I actually, to finish off this video, I did take the train recently. I went down to Dover, weekend just gone. And I didn't really enjoy the journey, to be honest. The journey down was okay, but the journey back wasn't ideal. And having to wear a mask for 2 hours wasn't ideal. My ears were hurting, that was the main thing. And I know that's a first world problem. And no, I didn't take my mask off, I left it on at all times. Safety first and everything. But I can understand now from a first-hand perspective why people are still reluctant to take the train. Obviously, I'd like people to take the train, but I think for absolute emergencies only right now, because it still doesn't feel like we're back to normality. And, I mean, to most people's credit, everyone I saw on the train was wearing a mask, bar one, but I won't name and shame. Everyone behaved themselves, social distancing was very, very prominent. So it wasn't anything like that, but it just didn't feel right still. It felt very uncomfortable. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. I didn't feel relaxed on the journey. Plus it's a reduced service still. And yeah, it doesn't feel very convenient. So I would like, as I said, I'd like people to take the train, but I think it's wrong to try and force people or to try and bribe people or whatever fancy euphemism you want to call it. I think still there's a lot of work that needs to be done before it becomes a safe, viable option again. And I mean, safe's probably not the right word. I'm not saying it's unsafe, but I just think right now it just, as I said, it didn't feel right, and I can't really find the words for it other than that. It just didn't feel right still. So one day, maybe by sort of March next year, we'll start to be looking at it being okay again. But I kind of held back a little bit on talking about it, and I wasn't expecting to take the train anytime soon. But now I have done it, I feel like I can talk about it a little bit more. And I think it's very easy for people to sit in their armchairs and say, oh, people should be taking the train still. But until you've actually tried to do it, particularly if you're a person at risk, I certainly don't recommend it. Or if you live with someone who is a person of risk, I also wouldn't recommend it, because you just don't know. You can't be certain. And I mean, I do live with a person of risk, but I took every precaution I could. I think I used an entire bottle of hand sanitizer. You know, I didn't touch escalator handles and things like I normally would do. It was very surreal, very strange, very unusual. Not something I would like to get used to, for sure. But that's just my opinion. Some of you might agree, some of you might disagree. That's totally fine. If you want to take the train still, that is entirely your right. But now as I said, now I've done it, I feel like I can talk about it a little bit more and say with the utmost confidence that it doesn't feel like something I would want to keep doing right now. But I would like to get back on the trains one day. It felt like, in the morning, it felt like I was going on an adventure, and then by the evening I just wanted to get home so badly. Because it just, yeah. Anyway, let's not end on a sour note. I really like the ideas that I've sort of spitballed today about cross-London travel and bringing back international sleeper services, or bringing international sleeper services to the UK, because they never started to begin with. The project was cancelled before it really got off the ground. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there any ideas yourself that you'd like to perhaps put forward? I'm always happy to talk about them. I might knock them a little bit, because sometimes if I don't see the use, then I'll question that, and that's something I do a lot, and some people might sort of interpret it as me being overtly negative, but really it's kind of like trying to find the value of it, and if you can find the value of it, then I'll support it all the way. But it's that sort of middle ground trying to find. Anyway, I'm not going to waffle on about that. The episode's pretty much done now, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's not the ideal solution, as I said. I would prefer to be streaming this sort of thing, particularly as there's going to be a lot more trains added to the network in the not too distant future. So I'd have liked to have been able to do that in streams, but this is the best I can do for now, I'm afraid. It's better than nothing, that's for sure. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you enjoyed the series, drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. It's always very much appreciated. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support, and until next time, I will see you soon.